Welcome kids, this is Aggro-Valvation! Just kidding guys. As you can see, this is Aggro and he's a sort of custom-made doll I got made from Peng toys, and they're very well known for making toys and dolls and other plush toy related stuff, and I thought for today I might dedicate this video to this said business. So welcome to our show, Aggro. Hello everyone! So before we begin, as I said, I've been wanting to get my own Aggro doll for since I was a little kid, and it's great that I finally got my wish. Okay, so thanks you guys out there from Peng Toys. I really appreciate it. So you guys out there who have not heard of them, you may be able to get their to make you also a doll like this, not like this, but you can, if you have a favorite like anime or manga or cartoon that has not been released in toy form as of yet, you guys can approach them and ask them if you can make something like this for your collection. Or if you're sort of a business starting out your own cartoon and you're looking for dolls to market off, well, you can approach them and they'll sort out a good price for you guys. So I hope you guys may check them out. I'll be sure to put a link at the bottom so you guys can check out their site, and I hope you guys be sure to let them know if you guys like to check it out, and be sure to remember who recommended you. Alright, let's start today's show! Okay, Aggro, there you go. Now learn something. Alright, let's get into this, guys. So today we are going to take a look into one of my favourite of movies that came out not too long ago, called Little Women, that was released in 2018. And just so you guys know, I had a few Little Women movies to recommend me, and I wasn't sure which one to go for at first. There was this one that was released in 2017, that was a mini movie series that was released too, and after that, and before this one, just after this one came out, another one came out that was released in 2019, which is not too bad, but I thought, nah, it's not what I wanted to review. So I've decided to review the 2018 one because it has a modern day approach to this one. And I know what you guys are thinking, that lately a lot of remakes out there have been getting a bad rap, and I thought I might check out one of my favourite ones, for at least one of my favourites, to recommend to all of you out there. So before we begin, be sure to click to subscribe to my channel, and let me know if there's any other videos you may wish us to review in the future. So let's just begin. So the story begins with a bunch of girls playing in the attic, where Jo, our lead girl, is actually reciting the lines from her story that she's writing and stuff like that. And with her is her older sister Meg, her youngest Beth, and her youngest Amy, who are all playing dressing up as characters in her story. And as we move to the future, we see Jo, who's all grown up, who's presenting the same story to some professors at the university. Of course, at the university, they all tell her, we don't like your story, there's no love things, this is a genre they're not familiar with. So it was out of their depth. So then Jo leaves in a huff, annoyed and not so happy, and as she's heading off, she reminisces about the time when she and her friends are playing a game, and they go off to the attic, their sanctuary, to where they get these castles that are made by their mother, that are sort of like doll houses. There they start, decorating them and reminiscing about what they wish to do when they grow up. Meg's plan was to become a mother, have a family, and be happy. Jo wishes to do all the things. She wants to be a writer. She wants to go out to many different restaurants. She wants to reinvent the wheel in the writing industry, stuff like that. And let me see, Amy wants to be a famous painter so she can buy what she wants and do what she wants, whatever. Beth, being simple and nice and kind, says that she just wants to, you know, her castle, at least her sort of goal is to be, you know, happy and stuff. So the girls then decide to make an oath that each of them will help each other in helping them reach their castle, in reaching their goal in their life. So they all promise, and they can. So then we flash to the present, where Professor Bear, tells her how he's not familiar with Joe's writings of styling. So he offers to help her by reading and rereading the full book, because she only read a few pages and a few lines from her story, and so they didn't seem to appreciate. So he's offered his services to read her book and offer suggestions. And after several 5 or the 5th or 4th draft, she starts having, has to wonder if this is her dream in life. Then we flash back to the past, where the girls are in the attic again, and there they hear about their new neighbor Laurie, who's the grandson to Mr. Lawrence, an old man who lives in this very fantastic mansion. Here they start wondering who he is and what he's about, and then we cross over to their father, who is talking to them on a Zoom call, telling them their marching orders, telling them to solve their problems as graceful and dedicated and proud and beautifully like little women. So he is very proud of them. Their mummy is a very nice lady, and she's a very fine person to have. So anyway, we then find out that Meg wants to go to a party for the new year, and this party is hosted by none other than Sally Moffat, I think her name is, I'm not sure, where Joe is invited along, and Joe is least happy about going to this party and thinks, oh, do I have to? But she's forced into it by her sister, thinking that she wants to make friends and develop relationships, stuff like that. So Joe has no choice but to go along with Meg in this plan. So they head to the party, and there Joe meets Laurie, and there they talk about all sorts of things, like how Joe wants to do a lot of things. She also tells him about her stories and stuff like that, even though you could tell by this Laurie, he's not least happy or excited about her stories as much as she is. But he then invites her for a dance, and meanwhile, while this was happening, Meg is not having too much of a good time. Everyone is drinking, and she got knocked into a pool, nearly comes close to getting, she's at this point wants to head home. So Joe and Laurie take her back, and there they spend their final moments of the new year with their family. Then we cross over to the attic again, where Joe decides to recruit Laurie as one of their members of the Pickwick fan club or something, or Pickwick group. So he does get nominated, but provided that he also gives them as a bit of a, he gives them a special mailbox that keeps secrets and stuff, and special correspondence and stuff. And so they agreed that he should be involved in their group and stuff like that. So then we cross over to the present again, where Joe is having a hard time dealing with this sort of thing, and dear old Professor Bear tries to be supportive and stuff like that, and he is nothing but a nice guy and stuff. Then we cross over to the past again, where let me see, what's happening? Oh yeah, Meg is going to a prom, and there she's getting dressed in some nice vintage style dresses, and then her friend Sally suggests maybe you should wear this nice prom dress, and then of course, when she goes to prom, she gets pulled aside by one of her many admirers, and they're about to do it. Of course, Laurie is there, tries to get him to back off, but he's talked down by Meg and told not to, bother. But Meg eventually pulls the other guy off her and doesn't want him to go any further. But so she then heads out to the parking lot. There she meets Brooke, a nice man that she's formed an attachment from the first time she met him, obviously. And now they sort of kind of have a nice moment, excluding the part about where she threw up. Gross. Oh, yuck. Anyway, meanwhile, while this is happening, Joe is going out with Lawrence and Laurie to go to a movie, and there, while they're going to the movie, Amy sets Joe's work on fire because she's annoyed that she didn't invite her to the movies with her. So, and of course, later on the next day, when Joe is still upset with her for burning her stuff, she and Laurie go on a horseback ride, and Amy comes along. Unfortunately, the saddle is broken, and she slips off and I guess knocks her head against the rock, obviously. And both Laurie and Joe find her and they send for help, and Joe cries and regrets her decision of being nasty to her sister and, for being nasty about her. So anyway, we then cross over to into the future again, where Joe presents her final draft to Professor Bear, and he says that maybe it's time for a change. Maybe not so much put so much pressure on this novel that you've been, been writing for many years on. So why don't you try a new story? Joe is annoyed by this. She thinks this is the one story that she wants to present to the world. Of course, she hates he shuts her down, and so she heads off. And then we go flashback to the past again, where we see the kids in the Lawrence's garden, where they're playing Truth or Dare, and then they will go off on separate to play sardines, while Beth is actually checking out the piano that the Lawrences have. Of course, Mr. Old Lawrence arrives there, and he says, "Be sure to check out my piano, and I like it if you do it ever so often." So Beth was always afraid of Mr. Lawrence, so she's finally opened up. And after a couple of weeks, she kept coming over, playing the piano, enjoying herself. But then one day she collapses, and then we learn that she has developed cancer and may not recover because of her strong immune system. Of course, Joe does the best thing she could, as only Joe can do. So she goes out and comes back later, her hair completely shaven. She says that she sold her hair to pay for a sort of gumball machine that she knocked over in the lobby, of course. But I think what she did was very remarkable, where she was just doing this to show her support to Beth, obviously. It's a nice dedication. Then later on, we see Beth and Joe in the hospital bed, and her mommy notices her there and sees that she's crying, and she thinks she's crying because of the loss of her sister. But no, she's crying because she lost her one beauty. She's now as bald as an egg, and feels like that she just feels a little down. Then we cross over to Christmas time, and the Beth is surprised that she gets a piano for Christmas, and we watch as Beth plays the piano while the family sings some carols, and then look who comes through the door. It's none other than Mr. March, their father, and they all embrace him, hug him, and say how much they miss him, and all that sort of thing. So they're pretty happy. Then we cross over to another couple more a while later, where we find out that Meg is going to get married to Mr. Brooke, and she's all happy for it. Of course, Joe thinks this is going to ruin her life, but Meg reminds her, this is my castle, this is my goal, and while I support you and your goals, you should support me and my goals. So this makes Jo think about this, and then Beth tells her, if you don't go out and support your sister, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. So Jo goes out there with a big smile on her lips and watches her sister get married. And then we cross over to when Laurie comes back from university. He's actually attended Stanford, I think it was, I'm not sure. And then he tells her about how he's going to plan on going off to Europe and stuff like that. And he wants to take Jo with her because Jo says that she can't leave Beth because she's still weak from the chemo, I think, and she doesn't want to leave her. So, but he also offers to become her boyfriend, but Jo can't see Laurie as a boyfriend, obviously. Anyway, they then part ways, and then we cross over to, I guess, back to the present, where Jo returns for Christmas. So you guys know this is a different Christmas. So you guys know. There we see Meg, who's fully pregnant, and we see Meg and Mommy and all the others, obviously, and then she confides to Beth that she's having a rotten time in New York and feels like it brings out her frustrations and less than her creativity, obviously. So she doesn't feel happy at all. So anyway, but Beth tries to offer her support. Then later on, as they're eating dinner, we then see her aunt arrive with a package, and it was not from her, it's from Mr. Professor Bear, who has given her a package, and a Shakespeare volume, and he writes an interesting quote in there, and the others are curious about who this mysterious professor guy is. Of course, she says they're not in a relationship and stuff like that, and they should leave it alone. That's it. Leave it alone. So, anyway, she then eventually finds out from Amy that she's in a relationship with Laurie, and she's there. She's actually shocked, but then she's then be supportive. And then later on, when she's with Beth, I think Beth was a little in the dark, but everyone else was aware of that relationship. And Jo feels a little let down because even though she rejected him, she could not see him with anyone else, and feels a little annoyed that Amy, who is now become gone off to Europe, she's gone to study at Oxford, and where she's become a very well-known and respectful artist, and while Jo continues to struggle. But Beth reminds her that there is many ways to get to their castles, and it's not about envying the other person for having it a little bit more better and succeeding more. Anyway, they then go to the beach, and there Beth tells her sister Jo that she doesn't have much time left. It's sad, this bit. And of course, Jo says, you'll continue to fight. I'll continue fighting for you. I will be there for you, and I'll make sure that you will not die. Of course, this is out of Jo's hands because later on we see, much later, a funeral. Sad. And everyone's surrounding the coffin of Beth, and Laurie B's there for Jo. And as everyone's heading inside the house, Jo decides to run away. Well, not really run away. She actually goes running and for months or weeks, she is still running. And her mother finally approaches her, tells her that while Beth was always happy and happy for everyone around her, and she was not sad to leave, but she tells Jo that to continue to feel and try to stop feeling sad for Beth when when Beth would want Jo to live and continue living, at least for Beth, obviously. later on we see her in the attic, and she's reminiscing about her times there with her sisters, and just remembers all the things they talked about and discussed. And then she sits down at her table and starts writing her story. Then later on she sends it off to Professor Bear. Then we see her with Meg, and they're looking after Meg's little babies, her twins, and then we get a knock at the door. There we see Professor Bear, and he wants to check out the attic where Jo spent most of her childhood. So they head up there and they discuss her book, and he says it was a little bit long, but he thinks it's very authentic, and he wants to make this into a book with Jo. And they then kiss, and then I guess a few more years later, I think, because by now the kids have grown into toddlers, I think now. So, and we can see Jo getting ready for her upcoming wedding, meaning she is now decided to marry Professor Bear and build a life with him. And there they decide it's a little sad that Beth is not there to celebrate with her and everything. Of course, they all decide to make a new oath by being always as good as Beth. So they all promise, and arm in arm, the girls walk off together. And there we see inside on the attic, on the table in the attic, Jo's book. Then we fade out and we see a quote from Louise, the writer for Little Women, that she says, "I can never love anyone else like my sisters I love." So it's a nice quote. I really love that the real writer Louise loved her sisters, and I can understand where she's coming from in that. So you guys know, I do like the story. I love the take on this. I heard that they made another modern day version of Little Women years ago, and I think this one had the better take on it, and I don't want to see any more Little Women movies that are coming out. I mean, remakes are becoming a thing that people may not want at the moment, so... But I do hope we get more fresh ideas. That's what I like. I like fresh ideas. That's the only thing I like. So I really do like this take on this Little Women. So I'm gonna rate this now. I'm gonna rate it 5 out of 5. So that's my highest thoughts on it. So I hope you guys check it out. I'll try to find it if I can find a link, and I'll let you guys know where you can find this movie. Okay, so if I can't find it, guys, or send you a link, I'll be sure to check it out at your own time, and I'm sure there's a DVD out there that you might like to purchase. So thanks everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Say goodbye, Aggro. Goodbye, Aggro. Bye bye guys. See you guys on my next episode in FanGirl Review.